Good evening and welcome to tonight's live virtual workshop presented by the Howell Carnegie District Library and SCORE. I'm Brandy Tambasco, Adult Services Librarian here at the library. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have a few housekeeping items to share before we start the presentation. Tonight's program is scheduled to run until around 8 p.m. During the workshop, please share any questions you have for the presenter or report any technical issues you may have in the chat. The chat will be monitored throughout the workshop. You can also unmute yourself if you have a question for the presenter, but to reduce distraction, please stay muted when you don't have a question. Subtitles have been enabled for this program. If you want to turn those off, click the small up arrow next to the live transcript button menu bar and select Hide Subtitles. This program is being recorded and the recording will be available on the library's YouTube channel soon after the live virtual program. If you do not want your video in the recording, make sure your video stays off, that there is a red slash through the camera icon in the bottom left corner of your Zoom window. This is the third of our series of virtual small business workshops with SCORE this fall. I will be sharing a link shortly in the chat that you can find out more about the next one. And don't forget to visit our website, www.howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from our Howell Carnegie District Library. And then without further ado, I'll turn things over to tonight's presenter, Steve Feynman of SCORE.
Thank you very much, Brandy. It's always a pleasure to work with the Howell Library. And give me a moment to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay. Make sure I'm at slide 1. Okay, but before we start the actual presentation, I want to give you a few words about SCORE for those of you who are not familiar with us. SCORE is a nonprofit 501(c) corporation. SCORE has been doing mentoring, small business mentoring, since the 1960s and was part of the SBA for a while until 1972. And we've been spun off as a 501(c) ever since that time. And we're funded with a direct funding from Congress through the SBA. Our mission is simple, and that's to help small businesses be successful. We don't care if you're no tech, low tech, or high tech. We don't care if you're in a food service business, high-tech business, or whatever business you're in. Our goal is to help you be successful. Our vision at SCORE is to have every person who wants help to get help and necessary help to be successful in business. SCORE is the largest volunteer-based economic development entity in the country. We have 10,000 volunteers and 300 chapters throughout the US. We have 2 chapters in Southeast Michigan, Ann Arbor area, and Detroit. We have about 28 mentors in the Ann Arbor chapter ready and willing to serve you. I should point out that all our mentoring is free. All our workshops at the libraries are free. And in mentoring, you can come and see us as often as you want. Right now, we're doing it all on Zoom. The other thing about SCORE, with having 10,000 volunteers and a wide range of expertise, if someone in our chapter or the Detroit chapter does not have the expertise, we can look for other help throughout the country to deal with your specific technical problems. If you want to find out more, look up at our Ann Arbor area SCORE website, and you can schedule an appointment there to speak with a mentor. We'll be happy to speak with you, or you can send me an email. Brandy will give you my email address if you wish. What we do also is mentoring workshops, as I said, and our purpose is to help small businesses succeed. All right, so let's get into today's topic. First, we'll talk a little bit about business planning. Winging it is not a plan, but there are different types of plans that you have to deal with. Always have to remember, any plan is a risk management tool. It's a tool to make you think, a tool to help you avoid mistakes. We all make mistakes. A tool that defines the elements of the business and the relationships. And also, plans are modifiable. Plans are not cast in stones. You have to be able to change your plan with as circumstances change. There are 4 types of plans, and we'll cover one in detail tonight, and we'll touch on the other 2. There's the almost or slightly thought out plan, which I see very often, the one-page business plan or the business model canvas, which we'll talk about tonight, and a formal written plan, and then the operational plan. One of the things you have to consider while you're developing any of the plans is what is the purpose of the plan? Is the plan for your own action that nobody else will see? Is the plan to obtain private funding from outside sources? Is the plan to get a loan? The important thing about developing a plan is it's got to be your plan. Just using a cutout template where you put in some words is not your plan. You have to be invested in your plan, and the business model canvas is the first step in getting invested in your business plan if you need to write one as such. There's the almost or slightly thought out plan, like a fellow I know came to say, well, I'm going to start a business tomorrow. Where can I get a loan? Okay. A good business plan has these elements. And the fact is that most people don't want to write, hate writing, and many people can't write. So the idea of developing this first without having some idea of what you're doing sets many people back. And there are templates. This is an easy plan to follow. This generally should be less than 10 pages. And if you do your business model canvas layout, as we'll discuss, that will help you write a formal business plan if you need it. If you don't need it, remember, a plan is just a list of tasks and schedules and due dates and sequential execution. The one-page business plan is the business model canvas. This was developed in 2005 by a fellow by the name of Alex Osterwalder as part of his work he was doing in business model ontology, which is definitions and terms, and was first published in 2008. Business model canvas. It's been widely adopted, and we'll have some examples of it later. And it defines the logic of your business. Business model canvas is a visual way of describing a business. It is a shared language for describing, visualizing, assessing, and changing business models. It's not cast in concrete. It's made to be modified. And part of the thing of the business model canvas as a paper document that you're working on is always remember, paper and sticky notes are cheap. Normal business plan is like a novel, not necessarily that thick. Many of them are 10 pages. So if you have to write one, don't make it longer than 10 pages because nobody will read it. You need the executive summary, your business idea, your strengths and weaknesses, your financials, and your conclusions about, and a statement about your management plan. This is the layout of the business model canvas as compared to a novel. It's got these elements: customer relationships, value propositions, key activities, key partners, cost, key resources, channels, revenue, and of course, customers. Of course, there is no business without customers. So a business plan would look like this. And one of the things about a business plan, it's like a novel. You can make it long, you can make it short, it's words. And oftentimes you get lost in the words and it precludes you from seeing your ideas. Business model canvas is more along the lines of a painting. The painter has to provide this whole image in one flash. There is no depth, there is no editing and back, there is no finding the last word. The painting is what counts. And that's what the business model canvas aims to do, is to let you paint your business out or lay your business out in a plan. And now I'm going to stop the share and we're going to go to a short video about the business model canvas, if I don't screw this up. Okay. Share screen. Share sound. Oops. Wrong one. Stop share. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. There we go. 1 second. Let me share the screen again. Share sound. Share. Okay. Can you hear this?
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
All right, where we go? Share the screen. Sorry about that. Okay, so that gives you a general idea of the business model canvas layout. And the book about this is called Business Model Generation, written by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigner. And it was introduced, as I said, in about 2008. It was originally presented in Michigan at Michigan State University about 2012. The book, if you want it, used to be online at strategizer.com. And at one point you could download the first 72 pages for free. But this is the business model canvas as outlined. You can download this and you can get this as a PDF and you can play with it. The idea being, as we go through each of these elements, which we'll go through, you can tag them with sticky notes to fill them out. And we'll have a few examples later on. But we'll now go through each of the elements and talk about it. But first, we want to talk about, there's 4 questions as you enter business that you have to consider before you even start. And one of those is the value proposition. What are you selling? I mean, the four questions are, what are you selling? Who are you selling it to? Who is the competition? And the fourth important question is, why should they buy from you? Okay. Value proposition describes the products and services that create value for a specific customer. What is it that you're selling? What value do we deliver to the customer? Which one of the customer's problems are we helping solve? Which customer's needs are we satisfying? But it's not just what you're selling that's important here. It's also the three elements in the value proposition that two of them you don't see. You have a product or service you're selling. The question is, what are they buying? And what they're buying might be slightly different than what you're selling. They have their own reasons for buying, which are not necessarily your reasons for selling. And the other thing that they're buying is your brand. And brand is particularly important in developing your credibility in the marketplace. So you have to think about that. So that deals with the value propositions. Customer segments are the different groups of people or organizations who need or want your product. What are you selling to? Who are you selling to? Where are they? Who are they? Do they have defined characteristics? If I know what I'm selling and I know who I'm selling to, then I can deal with the channels. So who are your customer segments for any particular product or service? For example, I do a lot of work with artists. I do a lot of work with photographers. And so for a photographer, he or she is not selling the whole universe of things to take pictures of. Well, some of them may try, but it's very unsuccessful. So typically the most successful photographers I know have specific customer segments. For example, I have one photographer client who specializes in taking pictures of aircraft and aircraft owners at air shows. He's very successful at doing that. I have another photographer client that specializes in taking pictures of your pets and your horses and you and your pets and those types of things. So in terms of whatever you're selling, your customer segment, is important to define it so you can target your marketing effort towards them. So you need to know, to maximize the probability of success, you need to know who you're targeting and who your customer segments are. And we'll deal a little more about that later on in something called the value proposition canvas, which simply is the link between the value propositions and the customer segments. Channels. How is what you're selling sold and delivered? What are the channels you use for marketing, sales, delivery, and returns? Marketing is for placement, sales is for transactions. So they're not the same, and there are different channels that you might use. And each customer segment might use a different channel, but several of the channels will overlap. For example, if I'm selling cupcakes and I want to sell them locally, I might sell them on Facebook pages. I might sell them on Facebook. I might sell them on on Etsy. I might sell them on Craigslist locally. Nationally, I might put them on eBay. I might put them on Craftsy. It all depends on where you want, who your customer segments are, and what your market segments are. I should have mentioned, customer segment also defines your market segment. Because I could have a customer segment that is narrow, but goes across all 50 states, or only goes to 2 states. For example, if I'm selling something in terms of, let's say I'm selling something in deer hunting, that's relevant in many states, but not all states. Moose hunting is relevant in a couple states. So it depends what I'm selling. If I'm selling cornmeal, for example, or rice grits, that might be a different marketplace than if I'm selling rice in a particular area or type of rice. So it's important to deal with the channels, each of the types of channels, and there are many types of channels that you can use. And this includes e-commerce channels, includes the social media channels, includes traditional paper channels, newspaper sales, home delivery things, presentations at libraries. For example, a lot of times when people want to get in front of parents, they will do a presentation at a library for the children, or an activity for children, because parents come with their children to the library. So it all depends on what you're selling and what channels you need to use to reach the appropriate customers segments. So the channels are several functions: marketing, raising awareness among customers, help customers evaluate your product or service. And this is done often through your web page. It can be done on your Facebook page. It can be done on your eBay page. I mean, there's many places they can do this. It also provides the means for customers to purchase products and services. If you're doing online business, you have to have a payment vehicle, a payment gateway to bring the money in. And you also, if you're in consulting, for example, you need to think about the channels for payment. Do you want a bank transfer? Do you want to be paid up front? Will you take credit cards? These all have implication on cost and your ability to perform and your revenue as well. And the other thing that channels do, of course, is you always have to be in a position to provide post-customer support. There's always got to be a complaint department. If you're selling goods, there's always got to be a way to return goods. Not always, but whatever it is you're selling, you have to make clear what your return policy is, what your customer service policies are. So when we're dealing with channels, there are a multitude of channels. Just think about them. You start with your web page, your social media pages, your standard advertising, and don't forget there's also radio. Libraries are a good source for certain opportunities. Also, if you're a speaker selling services, another place that's a great channel are service clubs. I'm in a Rotary. 3 times a month, every month, we need a speaker. We have speakers coming in telling us about all sorts of products and services and organizations that may be of interest to us. So there are a wide variety of channels for you to consider, and you have to determine which ones to use with each of your customer segments. Customer relationships. What sort of relationship do you want to have with your customers? Depends on your customer segments, depends on what you're selling. You don't have a real close relationship with Amazon, but they know a lot about you. But they have a transactional relationship with knowledge about you. So what sort of relationships will you have with your customers? Will you have simply a transaction relationship? You want a relationship that engages them to come back to you to buy more stuff, or come back again, or to refer people to you for your services or products? Do you want a more social relationship with them through the channels? Will you be seeing them at trade fairs or some other places? So what sort of relationship do you want with each of your customer segments? The idea is be nice to have people buy more than once and to refer customers to you. There's a great book dealing with relationships that you should look at. It's called Engagement Marketing. It's by a woman, Gail Goodman. And Gail Goodman used to own a small firm, which many of you may have heard of, called Constant Contact. And it talks about how you keep customers engaged and develop the relationships with them. So it's worth looking about. So in customer relationships, we're talking about the types of relationships a company establishes with a specific customer segment. Personal, as I said, transactional, personalized, engaged through tech or social media, or personal contacts. A lot of the personal contacts nowadays are done through blogs. Many websites use blogs as a way of keeping people and enhancing the relationships. So that's something for you to consider, as well as constant contact newsletters. Those sorts of things help build a relationship. Because in my view, the idea is to have customers come back once, more than once, and refer people to you to buy product. Revenue streams. Revenue streams represent the cash generated from each customer segment for each value proposition that they purchase. So I can have a number of revenue streams coming in from for each product from different customer segments. I can have different revenue streams coming in from the same customer for different products through different channels acquired through different channels. So it's the revenue coming in, and it depends on what you're selling, customer segments, the channels you use to get it. And the channels you use, as I said before, part of the channels are how do you collect your money from your customer segments? How do you return money to your customer segments? Will you be using things like PayPal? Will you be using Venmo? Will you be taking credit cards? Not everybody takes credit cards. Well, most people do, but there are some services that will not take credit cards. They'll take checks. You have to see what those channels are to feed those revenue streams. And as I say, you may have several revenue streams related to the same product. If I'm selling meals, over the internet, from the meal deals, every box I send out is a revenue stream, but each item in there is a revenue stream in that meal. Key resources. What are the things you need to conduct business? Do you need a factory, store? Do you need equipment? What type of records do you need to do? What sort of financial resources will you need? Will you need a bank? Most people need a bank. Will you need capital? Will you need lines of credit? Are certain people key resources, certain sources of knowledge? Is the library key resources? Are key resources intellectual, like brands, patents, copyrights, and trademarks? These are key resources that vary with each of the businesses that you have. So you have to look at whatever business you're in and think about what are the key resources I need to operate. If I'm in my home and I'm running a home business, what do I need? Do I have a desk? Do I have a computer? Of course I have a computer. Do I have a cell phone? But if I'm in a store, what do I need in the store? What sort of inventory do I need? What sort of suppliers will I need? What are the key resources I need to operate? That includes human resources if you're having people. Key activities are, what do we have to be good at to succeed? Well, you have to be good at marketing for one, and sales, but what else do you have to do? And this comes to something in the fourth type of plan I mentioned early. Many people forget to do this, and this is the operational plan. What do I have to do to be successful? What are the mundane tasks that I have to do every day, plan and schedule? What are the tasks that I have to do long-term? Who has to do them? Who are the responsible parties? How often do I have to do them? These are things including marketing, production, technology, but also record keeping, customer relationships, fulfillment task. If I'm selling a product, I have to be able to fulfill it on a regular scheduled basis. Paying my bills, paying your taxes. All these things are key activities that you have to do in order to be successful. Now, they impact various different elements in the matrix, but all of those things are necessary to your operation. Marketing and sales are extremely important, of course. What you're selling is important, but being able to fulfill your sales efforts, your marketing efforts, and being able to operate smoothly are also very important things to consider. And so I urge people, and they often haven't thought about it, of creating an operations plan. And that is, what are the tasks, who's responsible to do them, when do they start, when do they finish, how often do they have to be done? And that goes for each aspect of the business. Key partnerships. Who are you going to have for your key partners? Do you need suppliers? Who are they? What are they? How dependable are they? What sort of relationship will you have with them? You have the same type of question as you have with your customer segments. What are the relationships you're going to have with your key partners? Who are they? Are they suppliers? Are they wholesalers? Are they manufacturers? Are they other consultants? Are they your bank? Who are your key partners? Who are your key suppliers? And what do you need to operate smoothly in case you have to pivot? And one of the things I should mention, there's no business plan, to my knowledge, that's ever been started that hasn't had to pivot. So who are your key partnerships? This is part of what you need to sketch out when you're working with the business model canvas. Who are they? List them. What's the relationship? How do they focus on your key resources, key operating requirements? Cost structure. I have a revenue stream, but if I have key resources and I have key activities and I have key partners, I have some cost structure. What is my cost structure? And by cost structure, you shouldn't start a business. I can't say you can't start a business, because many people do. Without understanding your financial model for your business. Are you a cost-based business? Are you a service business? Do you have overhead? Do you have insurance costs? What are your fixed costs? Do you have rent? Do you have car rent, utilities, insurance? So under the cost structure, you're developing your cost models for your cost. Cost structure, including overhead and variable cost. Variable cost includes things that change every time you sell it. And by that, I mean, your wholesale cost for an item is for one item is X, but if you buy two, then the wholesale cost goes up and it influences your cost structure. It's very important to have your cost structure in place and develop a cash flow model for your cost structure so you can understand what your business is. And then with that cost structure, you can compare your revenue streams and see if what you're doing in these areas generates sufficient revenue to cover your cost and leave you with a profit. So now I'm going to share a screen and show you an example of how this would work for two businesses. Okay.
Mr. Beast is second on the list of Forbes' highest paid YouTube stars. He's just launched a fast food brand called Mr. Beast Burger and opened up 300 locations overnight. To put that into context, it took McDonald's nearly 6 years to do pretty much the same thing. So how did Mr. Beast do it so fast? To answer this question, we need to look back at the company behind Mr. Beast Burger. Virtual Dining Concepts was founded by hospitality entrepreneur Robert Earl, who has a string of restaurant chains across the US. What he realised was that many restaurant owners, like himself, had spare capacity in their kitchens. So he saw an opportunity to apply a business model that hadn't been used before in his industry. Let's use the business model canvas to see what that looks like. Virtual Dining Concepts' first customer segment is the mass market, or to be specific, the fans or followers of celebrities and influencers like Mr. Beast, for example. The value proposition for the mass market is fast food created by their favourite influencers. And Virtual Dining Concepts reaches them through the social media channels of the celebrities and influencers that they work with. For revenue, Virtual Dining Concepts takes a cut of fast food sales from the end consumer. Now, celebrities and influencers are the channel to reach the mass market, but celebrities and influencers are also a customer segment themselves for Virtual Dining Concepts. And the value proposition for celebrities and influencers is being able to monetize their audience. Celebrity account managers and agencies are the channels that Virtual Dining Concepts uses to then reach those celebrities. On the back end, the key activity is outsourcing fast food production to their key partner, restaurant owners across the country with spare capacity in their kitchens. But what's essential for this model to work is they have celebrity brands as a key resource. So rather than Virtual Dining Concepts investing heavily in promoting the restaurants by itself, it offers the celebrities a virtual celebrity restaurant brand. So Mr. Beast has his own burger chain, Mariah Carey has her own line of cookies, and Tiger has his own chicken bites. Virtual Dining Concepts then creates demand through the social media channels of these celebrities and influencers. Of course, this all produces a very different type of cost structure, as they have to pay the celebrities licensing fees. So there you go, that's the story of how Mr. Beast Burger became one of the fastest growing business models in the fast food industry. But it does raise the question, why didn't an established fast food company like McDonald's do it first? Well, that's because most incumbents have a successful business model that they're focused on exploiting. They aren't set up to explore new models, or at least they're not yet. If you found this video useful, why not give it a like and subscribe to Strategizer's YouTube channel for more content.
We're going to see another video. Okay. And this is, I don't see it, sorry. There we go. This was the first use of the business model canvas for real. And the company may surprise you.
Okay, as a first example, let's define the business model of Nespresso. What's the value proposition of Nespresso? Is to offer the best coffee at home, as good as the coffee in the best cafe in Roma. That's the idea. And this value proposition consists of mainly of two different products. The first one is the Nespresso machine, the other one are the capsules. They have two different distribution strategies for reaching the customers. First, for the machines, they use the retailers for reaching the households and eventually the businesses. And this generates a revenue coming from the machine sales. But most of this revenue goes directly to the machine manufacturers, which are key partners for Nespresso since the beginning. For the Nespresso capsules, the story is a little bit different. They use their own channels. They use the mail order for reaching the customers, or the website, or you can also find now, much more recently, the Nespresso stores that you have in most of the big cities in the world. And those channels is a key resource for Nespresso because they have this ability to reach the customers through those direct distribution channels. When you bought a machine, you have to come back to Nespresso for buying the capsule. So it means that you have a kind of lock-in strategy if you want. So it means it's much more difficult for you to change your company if you want to buy those capsules, because you have to buy the capsules of Nespresso to put those capsules in the machines. And you can reinforce this using, for example, the Nespresso Club for keeping the relationship with the customers. And you can have this kind of strategy because also you have on your resource size the patterns. And based on this, you have the repetitive sales coming from those capsules, which is the main revenue for Nespresso. This is for the right-hand side, the value side of the business model. On the left-hand side, means on the backstage, if you want, you have different resources and activities. One of them is the coffee. You can reach the coffee, and so it means that you have some partnership with the coffee growers, which is normal for the Nestlé business. And when you buy those coffee, you have to put that inside the capsules. So it means that Nespresso want to keep this manufacturing activity. So it means you have one of the main key activities, which is the production, and they have the production facilities able to produce millions of capsules per day, and it has a cost. You have some other activities which is related to the marketing and branding resources, which has a cost. And the last activity is the distribution or the logistics, because you have to reach those customers with this direct distribution. So it means that you have the third activity, which is the distribution activity, which has a cost, which is the cost related to this logistics activity. This is the business model of Nespresso.
Steve?
Yeah.
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you Grammarly. Okay, so here's my essay, and I'm going to click through Grammarly suggestions in the right panel. Your sentence may be unclear or hard to follow. Consider rephrasing.
So Steve, Dominique asked in the chat, was Mr. Beast able to open multiple locations based on the revenue generated?
We have 300 locations.
Hi, Steve. I wasn't able to fully hear your entire answer. Did you say yes, they were able to open the 300 locations from the money or the revenue that was generated by that model?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was important, but the key thing was they had the startup investment. They had somebody in the business already, and so that makes a big difference. So it wasn't somebody who's never been in the food business doing it. Mm-hmm. But the entrepreneur saw an opportunity to do it, and he figured out a way to do it. But it's in the business model, innovation like that, they're a disruptor. They're breaking the normal model to do it. I mean, Amazon was a disruptor. Amazon was a big disruptor initially in the book business, by starting out by selling books online. Nobody imagined that they would turn out, would end up it would end up with them being the giant that they are.
To follow up on that, is that something that you recommend? I know that there are probably pros and cons to being a disruptor. But I'm wondering about the success rate of being a disruptor or thinking creatively about, how to do things differently, in which you would be considered a disruptor.
A lot of things fail. But the reality is you don't know it until you try it. Mark Twain once said, if you remember Mark Twain, you can't get ahead unless you start. But the point of the business model is that you've got it laid out in a fashion and you can see things and make changes. An example of having to change is a friend of mine. This goes back to 2005. Probably many of you weren't born then. But in 2005, there was a hurricane called Katrina in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans at the time. And after the hurricane, right before the hurricane, a kid, he's 50 now, but kid's relative. But anyhow, he came down to New Orleans to open a cheese shop. And he opened a cheese shop. And then the hurricane came. And they had some great cheeses. It was great. But when the hurricane came, the city was being reconstructed. Nobody wanted cheeses. They wanted sandwiches. So he started making sandwiches. Now he has 3 delicatessens. Doesn't sell cheese anymore, but he's got 3 delicatessens. So the idea is to start and then pivot. You don't know until you try. It's like the food truck revolution. Now, food trucks have become very advanced. They've been able to penetrate markets they haven't been able to penetrate before. But you don't know until you try. Coffee shops. Look at coffee shops. Starbucks started a trend and individuals were able to follow it or break it. Another great disruptor in the area, you've all heard of Zingerman's. Zingerman started making bread. Zingerman's, before the pandemic, was doing $66 million a year on a model that's people and customer focused, as well as high quality products. So it depends. You never know, but you won't know until you try it. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we're going to talk about what's called the value proposition canvas. If I didn't destroy the video, I'll have to repost it. And that deals with these 2 elements in the business model canvas: the value proposition and the customer segments. And remember, earlier I said in this box, there are 3 things: what you're selling, what they're buying, which is related to this, and your brand. So we're going to show a little video that describes the value proposition canvas. If I didn't screw it up, let me see if I can find it. I might have erased it. I'll repost it in a second here. Hold on. Stop share. Okay. Slide screen. Share. This is what I want to get. Like that. And let me back out of this a second to copy this. Hold on a second, let me copy this. Frustrating here.
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you how I use Grammarly to edit.
Every day, companies design products and services to improve their customers' lives. But 72% of new product and service innovations fail to deliver on expectations. This means that customers don't care about 7 out of 10 new products introduced to the market. It doesn't have to be this way. Just like you create value for your business with a business model canvas, there is in fact a tool to intentionally visualize, design, and test how you create value for customers. It's called the Value Proposition Canvas. The Value Proposition Canvas is composed of 2 parts, the customer profile and the value map. With the customer profile, you describe the jobs your customers try to get done. Jobs can be functional, like getting from A to B, social, like impressing friends and colleagues, or emotional, like gaining peace of mind. You highlight your customers' pains, which annoy customers while trying to get a job done. Pains are negative outcomes that customers hope to avoid, like dissatisfactions with existing solutions and challenges, frustrations, risks, or obstacles related to performing a job. And you outline customer gains, which describe how customers measure the success of a job well done. Gains are positive outcomes that customers hope to achieve, like concrete results, benefits, and even aspirations. Use the customer profile to visualize, test, and track your understanding of the people or companies you intend to create value for. It's a map that becomes clearer the more you learn about your customers. The second part of the canvas is the value map. With it, you list the products and services your value proposition builds on. You describe in which way these products, services, and features are pain relievers, how they eliminate, reduce, or minimize pains customers care about, making their life easier. And you outline in which way they are gain creators, how they produce, increase, or maximize outcomes and benefits that your customers expect, desire, or would be surprised by. The value map makes explicit how your products and services relieve pains and create gains. Use it to design, test, and iterate your value proposition until you figure out what resonates with customers. You achieve fit by creating a clear connection between what matters to customers and how your products, services, and features ease pains and create gains. Great value propositions target essential customer jobs, pains, and gains, and do so extremely well. Your customer profile may contain countless jobs, pains, and gains, but your value map highlights which ones you intend to focus on. But don't forget, an outstanding value proposition can still fail if your business model is flawed. Successful companies embed outstanding value propositions in scalable and profitable business models. Use the value proposition canvas to create products and services that customers want. Get started at strategy.
So that should give you a good idea about the value proposition canvas and how it works and how it ties in to the business model canvas. And for any of you that have a tablet or an iPad, you can go on and get an app. This is called the Canvas Model Design app. And it works with sticky notes. And it gives you the ability to lay out your business model and play with it and test various aspects of it. That's nice, but now what? One of the things many people can do with their business idea, with their business model canvas, is to test their business ideas. Well, how can one test their business ideas? Well, for example, I had a client that was a designer that wanted to see how the designs would play in women's clothes. But she didn't have any of the clothes made. But there are several catalogs out there where clothes designs are shown as drawings. So I suggested that she post it out on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and see if she got a reaction. And she did. She was able to get interest in it so she could get some orders. And that was her start. So the idea between testing it, as you lay out your business model canvas, there are things you can test. Each of the things in your business model canvas could be considered a hypothesis to be proven. Are the customer segments, the one customer segments I picked, are they interested in my product? Well, can I try and find out? How can I find out? That's the idea of testing. Can I put out a sample product and put it up for sale and see if I get interest? Can I put it out in various channels to see if there are different channels that are interested, people are interested in? It's one way to do it. And we just went through the business value proposition canvas and the value map. And those are the things that will help you develop what you can test. The right side of this 4 boxes here are, as the gentleman said in the Nespresso element, the marketing element or the front end of the business. Customer segments, the value proposition, the customer relationships, and the channels. And this is the area that is easiest to develop a test in. Now, there's many tests that you can do, and there's a whole book about them. Look at them. This is by the same people. I showed you the cover, and it's available. I'm not sure if the HAL library has an edition of it. But these are things that you can test depending on what you're selling. Do I have a consulting business? Have I what have I done to see if anybody's interested? Have I developed my website? Do I have a Facebook page? What am I showing to people? I can develop a Facebook page at no cost. I can develop a LinkedIn page at no cost. And I can develop a website at low cost to see what interest I can get by pushing an ad out there using Google Ads or Facebook Marketplace or whatever test you want to use. Feasibility hypothesis. If I'm making donuts, I want to make sure I have a supplier. What do I need to get a supplier to guarantee me stuff? Should I buy stuff to see? If I'm in the drop shipping business, you're darn right that I want to know the product I'm drop shipping is real and what the quality is before I order it and get stuck with possibly having to refund money to people for bad products. So these are the feasibility hypotheses that you can look at and test to some degree. Who are your key partners? Are they really your key partners? Can you go to your bank and say, can I have a line of credit for 100,000 or 250,000? Will you get it? What do you need to get it? So it's time you can test these things out. Revenue streams. Now it's like an auction. You put a price out there. When I deal with artists, the thing in dealing with artists, I always tell them to put the retail price on it. You can always discount. Never start out with a discounted price. But the idea, if I'm selling a product, I want to go out and see if my product is competitive revenue streams. And if you're selling a product in today's world, one of the places you can go to see if your product is competitively priced is Amazon. And I recommend for most people, and when I do my workshop on e-commerce, is to sign up and look at Amazon's Pathways to Success sessions on how you do business on the internet. It's very useful and gives you ways to deal with the internet and look and test things. Your revenue streams, where you generate the revenues you think. Is the product you're selling for an equivalent price in whatever vehicle you choose? is an equivalent price on eBay. I put a pen up on eBay. I'm a fountain pen collector, so I put some fountain pens up on eBay, and I thought they were worth X dollars. Well, some of them got sold and some of them didn't. Other ones, the same paint, are selling for less, selling for more. Some of them are still out there trying to sell at the same price. So it's a test. You can test some of these things for revenue. Cost structure. Can you really buy the product for the cost that you think? Do you really have a structure that allows you to buy the product for the cost? And one of the things I always recommend that's not in here, but if you're starting a business, be a business. Be a business. And so when you contact somebody, you're in business. And so I always recommend getting an LLC, which is very simple in the state of Michigan. And when you have an LLC, you're a business. You're not somebody calling up with an idea who's not in business. So the idea in testing is to test each of the elements in your business model canvas, competitive analysis, validate your solution, prototyping or testing, see if the market's real, validate the marketing side of the canvas. If you can't validate that you have customers and that you have a value proposition that anybody wants, then there's no sense in being in the business. And this is by a guy by the name of Steve Blank, who did the another version of the business model canvas. So again, the business model canvas, it's a good tool. It's an easy tool to use. We're available to talk to you about it and offer mentoring and discussion about it or any of your business plans. You can reach SCORE at Ann Arbor area score.org, or you can contact us through the admin address, or send me an email if you want to talk about it and set up a mentoring appointment. In any event, that concludes my presentation. I hope it's been useful. Are there any questions?
Excuse me, Dominique, thank you very much. She gave you the hand clapping reaction. So I'd say that was a very good presentation. As Steve asked, any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat or just go ahead and speak.
I do have a question about the section that you just covered in terms of testing the products and services to see if there is truly a market for it, as well as a revenue stream or streams. And I'm wondering about when you are operating in business and you're launching those products and services to test, if you start at one price and then your testing shows that it needs to be another price and you relaunch it at that other price, I'm curious about the effects that that may have on the audience and their willingness to, I guess, pivot with you in changing prices and things like that when you're testing things.
If they, let me get the contact slide. Yeah, that's part of the test. I mean, if they're not buying it at one price and you lower it and they buy it, then you have something. Now, if they buy a lot of it, maybe you're selling too cheaply. You can raise the price. People raise the price. But my view is it's always easier to start high and come down than to start low and go up. So you just have to try it. You have to see if there's anything similar that you're selling in the marketplace, what it's going for.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, maybe this might be an extreme situation, but say you're testing a number of things I'm wondering about, are there instances in which the business may look unstable or illegitimate because there's so many things being tested, and you know that they're being tested on, you know, the back end or, you know, in the back office, but the audience may not know that. So it could appear that it looks unstable, or it may, I don't know, it could, I'm thinking maybe it could threaten the credibility. I'm just wondering about it.
No, I mean, if I, you know, look online at somebody who's doing drop shipping, you go to Shopify. You got a load of stuff out there on each website. You know, so you can change all the time. I mean, you know, McDonald's rolls out a product. If it doesn't sell, they take it out. Doesn't hurt their credibility, just doesn't sell. But it depends. I mean, you have to stage your rollouts. You have to have a plan as to how long, you know, what's the time period you're willing to test for? It can't be like 2 days. And how many channels will you be on in testing it? And what customer segments are you going to be testing it with? So the idea is, if I have product X and I have customer segments A, B, and C, I'm going to put it out there to this customer segments and see if anybody bites. But it's not unstable, it's just business. Now, that's why people have discounted pricing, you know, product sales, you know, clearance sales, because products don't sell. So what type of product are you thinking of, Dominique, or services?
So I'm thinking of one product and then mostly services. So the product would be t-shirts, and then the services would be coaching services, dealing with mental and emotional health and wellness.
Well, there's a lot of competition out there. So my view is,
Yes.
you know, you have to examine each of your competitors. You know, the third question I always ask is, who's the competition? And since you have competition, you know, what are they selling? What's it look like compared to what you're selling? What's the benefit of yours over theirs? And why should the people buy from you? That's the question. Those are the questions. So when you roll it out, those have to be the distinguishing factors in your value proposition, in my view.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, Jen requested that you reiterate the 2 recommended books and their authors, and then I'll go ahead and put that information in the chat.
Well, one's called, let me get back there.
Thank you.
Business Model Generation. By Alexander Osterwalder. It's available through strategizer.com, or it may be on, of all places, Amazon.
The library does have it as part of its circulating collection, so that can be checked out. I put a link, the name of the book and the link to our catalog in the chat for you, Jan, if you want to grab that. All right, here we go.
One's called Testing Business Ideas. They have 44 experiments inside. It varies on the business you're in, of course, and your scale, but it's worth looking at. And that's another strategizer book, and that's available by Wiley. I don't know if the library has that.
We don't have it yet, but that's likely going to be another edition. I'm going to put that information in the chat with a link to the Mel Michigan e-library, where you can do interlibrary loans if you want to request it through our library or your home library. I'll put that in the chat shortly. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
And then there was one by Gail Goodman, Engagement something.
Engagement Marketing. If I see it
Thank
here.
you.
I've got it here. I just want to see it handily.
And Dominique, you asked about where you will be able to find the link for the replay of this class. All registrants for tonight's program will be getting an email tomorrow with links to these books and other resources, including Steve's contact information in that email message. And then as soon as the recording of tonight's program, the workshop is available and uploaded onto the library's YouTube channel, we will share that link as well with everybody who attended tonight and also signed up but weren't able to attend. So keep an eye on your email inbox for that.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful.
All right, well, I guess we will wrap it all up. We'll have links to all those books. And again, the recording will be coming to everybody's email inbox. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us this evening, joining us for this workshop. We're so thankful to our partner SCORE for making this evening possible. Thank you all for attending tonight's program. We hope that you enjoyed it and got something valuable out of all the great information Steve shared. I am going to be popping a link right now into the chat. Please take a few minutes to fill out the quick event evaluation that I've linked in there for tonight's program. That will give us more information on what you would like to see from the library going forward. I'll also be sharing that link in tomorrow's follow-up email as well. Visit our website, www.howelllibrary.org, to discover more upcoming events from the library, including the next and final virtual small business workshop with SCORE for this season, which will actually be in the new year on Wednesday, January 10th at 6:30 p.m. about financing your business. Signups will start on Wednesday, December 22nd. So set a reminder for yourself, because we all know how the month of December just flies by. And don't forget to learn all about how you can make sure you've got enough money to take your dream from an idea to reality with SCORE. There's also a link there for score.org that you can explore their website and find local mentors. If you have any questions, want to meet one-on-one with SCORE mentors to give you some guidance, you can set it up there. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off, Steve?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I hope it was useful.
I'm sure it was, and because we've had this workshop before and we had requests for it again, so it's great information. Thanks again, Steve. Thanks again, everyone who attended. Hope you have a great night.
Bye.